So here we have the match between Andrew Ding and Stephan Mea. Andrew has Tornadus, Rillaboom, Urshifu, Chien, Flutter and hisuian Arcanine, whereas Stephan Mea has Brambleghast, Urshifu, Tornadus, Chien, Flutter and gholdengo. So straight away I'd say both players are almost definitely going to be bringing the Tornadus. They're both Tailwind-centric teams, and I think if one of them has the Tailwind and the other one doesn't, they're probably going to be in a good position for the rest of that game. So they almost definitely want to bring the Tornadus and probably lead it to be able to match each other's Tailwind. I think from Andrew's side, his Arcanine is going to be key this matchup. It hits at least 4 of Stephen's Pokemon super effective, being Brambleghast, Tornadus, Chien, and gholdengo. And Stephen's gholdengo is Specs Terra Steel, so it can't protect versus it, and it can't tear away from being weak to fire. Also resisting Fairy is very good. And because Arcanine is so good into Stephen's team, he almost definitely has to bring his Urshifu. I also think he should probably be bringing his Brambleghast, as it's very good into at least half of Andrew's team. And he's almost definitely bringing the Tornadus, which can't hit it because of its ability. And it being Focus Sash means it's almost definitely going to get an attack off. So if I had to guess, I think the 4 Andrew's going to bring are Tornadus, Arcanine, Chien, and probably Flutter. I think Urshifu could also be good, but I think Flutter is probably better. And then from Stephen's side, I think it's going to be Urshifu, Tornadus, Brambleghast, and one of Flutter and gholdengo. I think Flutter. Stephen does have the booster energy Flutter, so if it is speed boosting, then it will outspeed all of Andrew's team. So Stephen leads the gholdengo and Tornadus, and Andrew leads Urshifu, Tornadus. So we've got a Tornadus mirror here. Quite likely both are going to Tailwind this turn, but that does mean that he won't be attacking with his... Stephen won't be attacking with his Tornadus, which means Andrew's Urshifu is very safe here, and we see Andrew just goes for the Terra Water straight away, makes him not weak to flying for one, also more powerful, and he still resists the Steel from the gholdengo. And yeah, we see Stephen just go for Tailwind, Andrew's also going for Tailwind, so they're just matching each other's Tailwinds. And then the Surging Strikes from Urshifu comes out, hitting into the gholdengo. As one hit, it's 2. It looks like it might survive. And it does, probably EV to survive that. That is Mystic Water here, and it Thunderbolts, which the Terra doesn't help versus, so it just gets the KO straight away. Stephen getting rid of not only Andrew's Terra, but one of his most threatening Pokemon. But as the gholdengo is so low, it's probably not going to be doing much else this game, as it's probably slower than the Tornadus on Andrew's side, but depends how both these Pokemon are trained. Andrew brings in the Chien, which now threatens a lot of damage. It can probably one-shot this Tornadus with an Icicle Crush, depending on how bulky it is. Although it is possible that Stephen has EV to live the Icicle Crush with his Chien, with his Tornadus, I mean. So we do see the gholdengo switch out. It's decided maybe he needs it for later. Obviously depends what Andrew's last Pokemon is. And we see the Brambleghast come in. And Chien protects, which means the Brambleghast is going to be very safe here. Because Andrew's Tornadus doesn't have a move that can hit it. So Stephen's Tornadus just attacks, does okay damage. Andrew's Tornadus boosts the attack of Brambleghast, but also gets a crit on Tornadus, which not sure how much that matters. Because the damage it was doing was probably putting it in range of any attack Andrew's going to throw at it anyway. Maybe it's in range of another Bleakwind Storm, so maybe that would matter. But this Brambleghast, there's no way it's not getting an attack this turn, because it's got its Focus Sash and it can't be hit by the Tornadus. Unless Icicle Crash crits, obviously. That is the only way This Brambleghast is not going to get an attack off this turn, which we see, and let's take it to Sash. Chien Pao avoids the Bleakwood Storm, which is huge because it keeps his Focus Sash intact, and Power Whip brings it to Focus Sash. So Stephan, if he hit then, would have taken down the Chien Pao, but obviously 80% accurate move, it's going to miss sometimes. This Brambleghast does have Shadow Sneak, however, which means that the Chien Pao might be forced to Sucker Punch or Protect this turn. Otherwise it would just go down to the Shadow Sneak. And then he would have to be Sucker Punching the Brambleghast to not go down, but then would probably go down to Bleakwood Storm. So I don't think Andrew's in a very good position here. He does switch in his Arcanine, which is very good in this position. It's good into both these Pokemon. We haven't seen Steve's last. If it is the Urshifu, which I think it should be, this is really not looking good for Andrew. We see Sucker Punch come out to kill the Tornadus from Stephan's side, probably so that he doesn't have to worry about Tailwind. So maybe Andrew's going for being able to set up Tailwind later when Stephan can't. But Stephan Shadow Sneaks the Arcanine, doing over 50%. That is insane damage. And Stephan has the Flutter Mane. He doesn't even have the Urshifu. That is not what I expected at all. We get to see what stat this Flutter Mane boosts, and it is special attack, which I think is slightly worse in this matchup, but it's probably going to live an attack from the Chien Pao anyway, and the Brambleghast probably means the Chien Pao is going to be Sucker Punching, so then it doesn't die to a Shadow Sneak, so chances are this Flutter Mane is going to get an attack off, but I don't know if it can do enough damage to kill the Arcanine, which might be able to kill it back, as it is Choice Banded. So we see Sucker Punch just kill the Brambleghast. Brambleghast was probably going for Shadow Sneak onto Flutter. I think we should see, yeah, we see a Shadow Ball coming out from the coming out onto the Arcanine, gets the KO, and now Tornadus Chien Pao versus Flutter Mane Gholdengo. Gholdengo's obviously very low, it's going to die to any attack. But it's whether this Flutter Mane dies to anything. I feel like this Flutter Mane's going to live an Icicle Crash, and if it outspeeds the Tornadus, then all it has to do is not flinch and Dazzling Gleam, and Stephan would win the game. And even then Andrew's Bleakwood Storm would have to hit the Gholdengo, which is only 80% accurate. So I feel like Stephan's in a very good position to win this game. I think Andrew needs a couple of things going his way, which is definitely possible in this game. It's a 30% chance and an 80% chance that he needs realistically. People have lost games off of worse odds than that. And we see Stephan going for the Terra Fairy, just to make sure he does the damage and so that he resists Sucker Punch, I guess. The Icicle Crash does come out from Chien Pao. Is it gonna fit? It just kills! Oh my god, I was so sure that that Flutter Mane was going to live, but it just killed the Flutter Mane. And then Bleakwood Storm hits. So Andrew somehow won that end game. I'm really surprised that Chien Pao just one-shot the Flutter. So going forwards in this matchup, I feel like both players played very well. It was interesting to see Stephan be able to handle the Arcanine so well without having to rely on his own Urshifu. And I think importantly, his Urshifu probably wouldn't have won him that end game anyway. And now Andrew knows that his Terra Water Surgeon Strikes isn't going to kill the Gholdengo, which is huge information in this matchup. I think he was really relying on that, getting that turn 1 KO. So maybe he will want to preserve his Urshifu better this game, but getting it that low did end up winning Andrew the game. It was even though it looked like it wasn't that good for Andrew because he didn't get the KO and got KO'd in return. The gholdengo was basically useless for the rest of Stephen's game, so it basically was. If anything, it was a dead slot. Stephen had to switch it. Although the switch he did do was obviously very good because he took no damage and got an attack boost. So we see both trainers have switched up their lead. We see Flutter main Tornadus from Stephen and Chien Tornadus from Andrew. So as we did see last game, the Flutter main did just die to an Icicle Crash. So Andrew's in a very good position here as he can just Tailwind Icicle Crash. He's not threatened from a KO onto his Chien if he does that, if he Icicle Crashes the Tornadus, presuming he hits. I think Icicle Crash and Tornadus makes a lot of sense as that one can't protect, so he's guaranteed the damage. Whereas if he Icicle Crashed to be Flutter main and say a Protect Bleakwood Storm came out, that would break his Sash, which isn't great for him, considering he would do no damage in return. We do see the Icicle Crash onto Tornadus, as both Tornadus' Tailwind, gets rid of a Tornadus straight away, and then the Flutter main goes for Gleam, does decent damage to Andrew's Tornadus, and brings the Chien to Sash. And Urshifu comes out from Stephen, so he did bring Urshifu this game, and it just threatens the Aqua Jet onto Urshifu, so it's very important this turn to find out which is faster, Tornadus or Flutter main, which I don't think we've seen, because if the Flutter main's faster, Stephen has a relatively safe play of just Aqua Jet the Chien and Moonblast for Tornadus, presuming that would kill the Tornadus. It definitely would if Stephen goes for the Terra Fairy, which would also make him resist Dark, which is what we're seeing him doing. And we do see the Psycho Punch from the Chien come out doing about 45%, which is still good damage, but goes down to the Aqua Jet, but it's still done a lot this game. And then, which one is faster? The Flutter main's faster, this Moonblast is almost definitely going to kill. It is special attack boosting, and it is a special attack boosting Terra Fairy Flutter main. So now, Andrew's down to 2 Pokemon, and it's Arcanine Urshifu, which, if I was Andrew, I would not be feeling good about this right now. Obviously, his Arcanine is Choice Band, so it can't protect. Even if it could, the Urshifu is what's threatening it, which hits through Protect anyway. I feel like Stephen has a really safe play of just Moonblast Urshifu, Surging Strikes Arcanine, presuming his Urshifu outspeeds Arcanine. And Andrew, I guess, could Terra the Arcanine to try and live. It is Terra Normal. So if he Terra Normal Extreme Speeds into the Flutter main from Stephen, that might get the kill. So maybe he does that and he close combats the Urshifu, and that might be the only way for him to potentially get back into this game. Which I think we do see the Terra coming out from Andrew. He is Terraing the Arcanine. It's now not weak to water, so it will probably live the Surging Strikes, and it boosts its Extreme Speed, which it locked into. However, it being locked into Extreme Speed means if Stephen has the Brambleghast in the back, it probably just wins in this position. The Arcanine has gone from being a counter to Brambleghast to not being able to hit it at all, and the Urshifu from Andrew is probably never going to be able to. And the Urshifu from Andrew is also not very good into it, so Stephen might just need to hit a Power Whip to win this game. The Surging Strikes into the Urshifu, just about 40%, which is okay damage, might put it in range of... We see a close combat come onto the Arcanine anyway. Getting the Oko, which I guess even if he didn't Terra would have Oko'd because it's still weak to fighting. So he covered for the Terra Normal. So now it will depend on what Stephen has left, but I feel like no matter what he has, it is for Brambleghast. He's in a much better position. So Stephan doesn't have his Terra left, so he is probably going to have to rely on Power Whip. Although he could go for Strength Sap to just weaken this Urshifu more, stay healthy, and then it means he can definitely win the Urshifu 1v1 without crits, obviously. And the Brambleghast just goes for Power Whip, just going for the damage, gets the win. So I really liked that switch up from Stephan. I think he saw that, like, even though his gholdengo got a kill, it wasn't that useful in that game. And then Urshifu was obviously very important to him winning. Andrew didn't switch up. Did he switch up? He didn't switch up the 4 Pokemon he brought, but he did switch up the leads. And although I felt like he was in a very decent lead to start with, it didn't end up working out too well. Maybe if he does that lead again, he can quite safely Tailwind Ice Cream Crash the Flutter main, because even if Stephan doesn't go for Tailwind with his Tornadus, that means next turn Andrew can taunt his Tornadus and just stop Tailwind, and if Andrew's in Tailwind and Stephan's not, he's in a very good position. So we see Flutter main Tornadus lead from Andrew this game, first time bringing the Flutter main, and we see Urshifu Urshifu Tornadus lead, from Stephan. So a new lead again, first time Andrew has brought his Flutter main, and it's in a very good position, I feel. Almost forcing Stephan to have to Terra his Urshifu if he doesn't want to lose it to Flutter main, and even then it's going to take a lot of damage. So I think Andrew can fairly safely just Moonblast something, get a lot of damage. So we do see the Terra coming out, and it is Terra on the Flutter main. Doesn't do anything defensively here, but it does help do a lot more damage, which from a Specs Flutter main is not what you like to see. A Detect from the Urshifu, so let's see what the other two do. Just a Tailwind from Tornadus, I guess, seeing what he wants to guarantee he gets the Tailwind, because if he doesn't Tailwind this turn and Andrew does, he can just taunt to stop Stephan from ever Tailwinding. But Andrew just goes for the Moonblast, one-shots the Tornadus, getting rid of a Pokemon for nothing. In return, that maybe was a time where Urshifu could have done a lot of damage, maybe even killed the Flutter main, but it probably would have died to a Moonblast as well, so it made a lot of sense for Stephan to protect that turn, or detect I should say. So now I guess it depends what Stephan has. He does have Flutter main, but Flutter main doesn't have Icy Wind, so the Urshifu is very threatened, especially as it's just protected. I feel like a Moonblast into that slot is very safe, and a Bleakwood Storm. I think there's not much that goes wrong doing that play, like a double Detect might happen, that's worst case, which obviously is a 30% chance. Stephan, on the other hand, maybe he needs to go for something like a Moonblast special attack drop on the Flutter main, hoping he's faster, Terrors his Urshifu, so then it would live with the special attack drop, or maybe he switches. Okay, he switches is probably Brambleghast, I would expect. Okay, so it's going to get to +1 Big System Tailwind and +2 from the Bleakwood Storm. And then Moonblast from Stephan's Flutter main. It is faster and does a lot of damage. So actually, maybe if Stephan had Terra watered and Aqua Jetted the Flutter main, it would have killed, but neither of them knew which Flutter main was faster. I just checked, and Stephan is Terra Water, so that could have been a very good play. But obviously, without knowing the information of which Flutter is faster, you don't know if that play works or not. But Brambleghast is in a pretty good position. It's +2 attack, and it has Shadow Sneak. And I imagine a Shadow Sneak at +2 would kill the Flutter main now, and the Tornadus can't hit it. but Andrew still has 2 Pokemon in the back. He's in a very good position. He taunts. Taunts for Brambleghast, I guess, guaranteeing it can't Strength Zap, so it will always be on Focus Sash now. It does Shadow Sneak into Tornadus instead of Flutter Mane, which I think is quite interesting. And dies to the Rocky Helmet. I do not think that was the play Stephen should have gone for. I think that was a bit of a misplay, maybe reading a Protect. And Gleam doesn't even kill the Flutter Mane. Stephen loses his Flutter Mane. Andrew still has 2 Pokemon in the back and a Tornadus and a Flutter Mane against an Urshifu. The Urshifu can still Terra, but Urshifu's a broken Pokemon. I don't think it's going to be able to win a 1v4. And we saw there, interestingly, Andrew considered clicking Rain Dance, and you might think that makes not much sense because it would boost the water moves from the Urshifu, but I think he would be going for that so that his Bleakwood Storms would become 100% accurate. But Stephen just forfeits and Andrew wins the game.
And what an intense match too with this tailwind. How are you feeling going into this matchup knowing how volatile it could be?
Yeah, it's actually like one of 2 matchups I really don't want to play because Brambleghast is just really, really hard in Tailwind Mirrors. Yeah, it's not unwinnable, so.
As we got to see there. So then going up against a matchup that actually is pretty difficult for you, where do you have your sights set most? Is it really just take down the opposing Torn and then go from there and see how many KOs I can take? Or what's the approach to these difficult Tailwind matchups?
I think for me, getting the lead matchup right in Tailwind Mirrors in general is really important. And I think at least in my head, I did that every single game. I just thought he'd protect the Flutter in game 2. But yeah, and so, yeah, I just try to lead correctly, basically.
That's fair, especially too with these Tailwind teams. It kind of feels bad to swap because you know you're just going to lose whatever comes back in.
Right.
But you're talking about that you felt like you led correctly, and we got to see that you did take the win to start things off, but it definitely started off on a weird note because you missed this KO. I know there's a little something going around here, but you missed this KO over onto the gholdengo on the other side. Were you surprised or taken aback by that one?
I think that was more to kind of test out the waters to get an idea, because yeah, it can sometimes kill, but it depends on the gholdengo spread. And so, but I figured even if it doesn't kill, because I get the free switch, it's actually totally fine. And if it does kill, then I'm not actually sure it would be that much better, because he gets a free switch and a Flutter, and then I can't really switch anything into that either. And so, yeah, it actually was fine that it lived, but yeah, I think game 1 I just was trying to like, yeah, just like feel out how bulky the sets were and stuff.
That makes sense. Make sure you know exactly what you're going up against. And what we got to see too coming out from both of you guys was teams that are really reminiscent of Worlds teams. For yourself running a very, very similar team, the same 6 to Hirofumi. I think it's just a couple of little things changed. So where was the decision making in, hey, he was right with this 6, but let me tweak these couple of things?
I guess mainly just comfort. I think Sash Pow in particular, I just feel like bails you out a lot. And for the Specs Flutter, I actually tried Calm Mind Flutter, which was the original one on Hirofumi's team, quite a bit too. And that one, I think it's like maybe 50-50 in terms of which one's better. It just depends on the situation. But yeah, I think against like most balanced teams, like I think Specs just covers more in general. So yeah.
Makes sense. Well, you're definitely off to a great start here in Pittsburgh. So great start so far. So congratulations on that. Before I let you go get rested up for your next round, hopefully continue that dominance. Do you have any final words or any shout outs?
Yeah, I have 2 shout outs. Shout out Justin Ramirez, who just like helped practice with me the past 2 weeks a disgusting amount, and also my good friend Simone Sanvito for talking me through like all sorts of matchups, because even though I don't think he like worked with Hirofumi or anything, but he also brought the same 6 Pokemon to his Worlds Day 2 team, and so yeah, those are my 2 shoutouts.
Well, I mean, of course, any success is with great friends by your side. So congratulations again. Best of luck going on forward. For us, we're going to be taking a quick break.